We are on Sly Media TV. My name is Shorai Murwira, and today we are joined by the president of Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union, Mr. Masaraure. Mr. Masaraure, thank you for affording us this interview, and would like to know from you, recently the government has scrapped color and introduced heritage-based education. Can you please explain to us in your own understanding what really is heritage-based education?
Thank you so much. I think it is too easy, and it's not the proper terminology to say they have scrapped the color. What they've done for me is to change the name. They are saying they are now going to be school-based projects, which I think they will be implemented in more or less the same fashion as color was being implemented. But one thing that is clear is that they are determined to reduce the workload on the learner, which is a welcome move. You understand that at grade 7 learners would do up to 30 activities of continuous assessment learning activities, but now they are saying there will be one activity per learning area, which will be up to 6, I think. But we still wait to see the amount of work that is going to be covered under that one activity, because it's one thing to say we've reduced it from 5 to 1 to a single activity, but then maybe that single activity can be more demanding than all the other 5 activities. So we're still really to assess the impact of these changes. It's still an announcement that has been done without a clear policy framework that we can analyze through. But the heritage-based curriculum, from the way I understood it, when we were engaging the minister recently, we are glad that we have a minister that is prepared to talk. At least we talk to each other. He was emphasizing the need of teaching our history to the learners, to our own people, which is we do not have a problem with. But we only have a problem when the history that we teach our people is not the true history that should be taught. We have a challenge the way our history has been reduced to be a eulogy of ZANU-PF, to tell the world the stories of the good things that were done by ZANU-PF, as if it was the only party that was fighting the liberation struggle, as if our history ended at independence. We are well aware that we have another portion of history post-independence. So we want our history to be comprehensive. We want to know the good contribution of the Ndabani Story, the good contribution of ZAPU and other players who did their part for the liberation of the republic. We also want to understand the missteps that were done by the ruling party post-independence, the abuse of our people, the human rights violation. They should be taught in our class so that we don't repeat the same. Kukura Wundi should be part of our curriculum so that people, that is the history that we should learn. The struggle for a new constitution should be taught to our learners. The struggles done by the likes of Morgan Tsvangirai, Tekere against the one-party state. Our learners should deserve to know all that. Unfortunately, when they say they want to emphasize the history of our country, they want to sing themselves, they want to praise the ruling elite who assumed power at 1980, and we are against that. But of course there is also emphasis to then say they are going to have focus on STEM, which is a welcome move again, because we have to be catching up. But also at the end of the day, we have to get the pudding first. At the end of the day, we can't really say this is a good move without really seeing how it's going to be implemented. Remember, we had a very good preamble on the curriculum that we are just transiting from. It had a very good preamble with all the good intentions, but when it came to the implementation, it was a disaster.
Okay, Mr. Masaro, thank you. Don't you think that this transition is going to affect the learners, considering that we already have those who are already sitting for June and November exams, and they have already been doing color, and now they have heritage-based education?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that our planning is not always the best. This curriculum expired in 2022. So in 2023, our learners set for an expired curriculum. And right now we are teaching an expired curriculum. It was going to be better if we had done this earlier. We should have reviewed this curriculum around 2020, 2021, 2022. An announcement was supposed to be made. But be it as it may be, we just encourage teachers and learners to find ways to transit to the new, because we have serious misgivings with what we have been with the old curriculum which we have transiting from. We understand that teachers had spent a lot of time doing colors that are being scrapped, but yeah, this is what we have to live with. Our government is not good enough when it comes to our planning, and we always hope that next time we can do better, but we are so worried about the resources that are also needed. Is our government committed to then channel the required resources to ensure that the incoming curriculum can be smoothly implemented? Those are questions that remains unanswered.
Thank you so much. Recently, we've been having teachers raising concerns over poor salaries. Can you give us a comment on that?
Yeah, it's that a big issue. We are being robbed through the surrogate currency, the rtgs currency. Whatever amount is being paid to be said is a salary, it's not a salary. So you have seen people earning peanuts, like around 900,000 rtgs, 800,000 rtgs. Or we're promised by our own government that they were going to pay our school fees for our children. But now if you look at the amount that they're giving us to pay fees for our children, it's now very pathetic because it's in the rtgs component. But so if you see that we were earning around $300 in allowance, then you said it's now being converted to become part of our basic salary. But then they went on to tax the same, heavily tax it, and from $300 it has been reduced to around $250. But while still they were deducting, the cost of living was rising. So because of the same tax regime across the economy, all goods and services prices for goods and services have risen. We have done our calculations, and we are saying the minimum that a person can live on is just $1,200. So you can look at the gap from 1,200 to 250 that we are earning. So what it means is that teachers are living in extreme poverty. If you're going to be looking at accommodation for a family of 6, you have to pay something around $300 just for you to get accommodation for your family if you're a teacher in Harare today. If you're going to be looking at the cost of commuting to and from work, you can pay up to $4 on a daily basis. So that at the end of 20 days going to work, you just need $80 for transport alone. So if you're also going to be paying school fees for your own children, then maybe 3 children are in school, the average cost for a school right now, 600, 700 per term. That's already 2,100. So the cost, we have tabulated the costs that someone is supposed to be catering for a month, and we've presented them to government to see, to help us to budget this $250. We can't be budgeting that, but we have been using a different approach. In the past, we have been consistently calling for workers to go on strike, to declare incapacitation, but we have changed the approach. We have said to the workers, you are enduring the pain, we are waiting for guidance from you, and we are glad that they are now coming forward to say they want a solution to the crisis, and we are asking them for suggestions. They are demanding that we call for a job action, and we have said we will not call for a job action. We want you to vote, and if the majority of workers want to go for a job action, then we will call one. We can't consistently be calling for job actions when the workers themselves seem to be comfortable. So we are going to be conducting a vote and to see how many teachers are prepared to go on strike. If the majority are prepared, we'll call for a strike. We don't have a problem announcing a strike. We are not afraid of being arrested. And we are well aware that we now have ridiculous charges of arresting someone for calling for what they call an illegal strike. We don't care about that. But we will only call for a strike if the teachers themselves are agreed that they should go for a strike and they should demand a living wage for themselves and for their families. So we are in this process, and we are hopeful that this process is going to produce results, because it is not going to be a job action from above, but it is going to be a job action from the classroom. But we are also encouraging government to address the salary crisis before we reach that particular point. We don't want our learners to continue losing on their right to education. Our learners have suffered enough. They deserve to have teachers in the classroom. But we can't be forcing demoralized teachers on our learners, because at the end of the day, they don't deliver the best of education that we want for our learners.
Has there been any negotiations with your employer?
So you are aware that the government has been ducking away from constituting a proper collective bargaining structure. The law provides for the same. If you're going to be reading our section 65.5 provides for the right to collective bargaining. But the government of Emmerson Mnangagwa has denied us that right. What they've been insisting on an illegal structure called the National Joint Negotiating Council, where they just do basic consultations without proper collective bargaining. But they are even now avoiding that creature, the National Joint Negotiating Council, which we don't even like, which we don't belong to, and will never want to be associated with the rest of our lives, because it's an illegal entity. It's moribund. It's made up of people that were simply appointed by the employer to misrepresent the employees. But even that structure, I saw them writing statements that they are worried that the government is avoiding them. And we have told them that no, As long as we do not have proper collective bargaining chambers, government is not time bound to engage us. They engage us when they want. And we are not going to allow an employer to behave like a slave master. We will force the government of the day to constitute collective bargaining chambers where we are going to be debating these issues, and then we come up with an agreement on the conditions of services. We can't have the employer unilaterally fixing conditions of services. So in short, the government is avoiding all forms of negotiations with the workers, and it is now up to the workers to force the government to come back to the negotiating table. In the past, we have forced the meetings in boardrooms where every union is represented, very far away from people who can be bribed, very far away from brown envelopes, but in a genuine broad-based consultation forum where we then agree on what is to be done. And whilst we are waiting for constituting a genuine collective bargaining structure, we will insist that every time we want to talk to the employer, it should be the employer versus all employees, not at some secretive NJNC where brown envelopes are shared under the table. We don't want that. And the next phase is, if workers are committed and determined, they can be able to force their government to negotiate. We have seen what the health workers have done, and we are inspired. We've seen what the lecturers have done. We are inspired, and we have shown the teachers that other sectors are now rising. What's your take? And we are waiting for direction from the teachers.
Okay, Mr. Masaraure, you are a teacher, and there have been allegations being raised by parents that you teachers are deliberately going slow during your working hours, forcing parents to pay for extra lesson fees. Would you care to comment on that?
It's very unfortunate that our parents do not appreciate that the duty bearer with regard to the provision of education is not the individual teacher in the classroom. The duty bearer is government, as mandated through Section 75 of our Constitution, where the government should provide state-funded education. So whatever the teacher does, the responsibility is government. The teacher is not a machine. It's an individual who must be paid so that they have a life. So if the government chooses not to pay the teacher, the parents are wasting their time if they are going to confront an individual teacher. They should go to the root cause of the problem and ask their own government to where they contribute tax to say pay our teachers so that the teachers can deliver a service to our learners. So if you choose to be ignorant or stupid and then try to focus on one teacher, the teacher can simply tell you that today I do not have a meal, so I don't have energy to teach. The teacher can simply tell you that I'm still looking for accommodation. My money is not enough to pay accommodation. The teacher can tell you that I don't have clothes to come to wear when I come to work. So at the end of the day, we should have a systems approach. Where is the system failing? The system is failing at treasury level, where people are failing to pay the salaries. And it is the collective duty of all citizens to confront Mtoli Ngube and demand better wages for the teacher so that the teacher can deliver in the classroom. You can't blame a tap because it is failing to deliver the water. You have to blame the whole system that delivers the water to the tap. And the teacher in this case is just a tap. He has to be fed so that he can be able to deliver to the learners.
But can we justify the actions by the teachers to force poor parents to pay for extra lesson fees?
We have condemned in no uncertain terms the extortion of money from parents, and we have said the teachers and the parents should collectively confront the solution holder, who is government. But now people are used to try to define some private escape routes from a national crisis. So there are some parents who believe that they have enough money to do the job of a government. There are some parents who would believe that a government has no role in the provision of the education for their own children. They would rather pay one teacher to teach their child at home. And we are saying that is not the way to approach a national crisis. Let's go to the solution holder as a collective. We want parents to be there. We want teachers to be there, demanding a solution from government. That is why we have been going around the country, setting up what we call Parent-Teacher Association, to say to the teacher, this parent is not your employer. Your employer is government. If you need your conditions of service to be improved, confront your employer. Saying the same to the parent, that this teacher is not mandated to provide education by the laws of this country. It is your government. So the two of you should unite and demand solutions to the education crisis from the solution world. Unfortunately, the teacher would want to get money from the parent wants to appear to be clever, to pay behind. And most parents also initiate these processes, even when teachers are not willing to be accepting the same. Unless we get to a point where our people are conscious enough to appreciate the role of a government. That is why we now see people collecting, making own private arrangements to have rubbish collected from their communities. They have to pay another service provider for water, where they are now doing the same. So we now have a government that has no duty, no responsibility, because the people are assuming the duties of the national government.
In conclusion, Mr. Masaraure, we are seeing thousands of students being churned out from universities and other tertiary institutions in Zimbabwe, and they are ending up unemployed and roaming into the streets. Where is the government really missing it?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that there's a de-link between our aspirations for our economy and our aspirations in the education sector. There is a big de-link. These things are not related. Again, it goes back to this issue of planning. So if we are going to be enrolling 50,000 students in our tertiary institutions, we should have also a national strategy to say, where do we want these people to be absorbed? How many learners, how many people do we need in the agriculture sector to do which jobs? And then we structure our enrollment in such a way that the people we are producing, we are not wasting money, but they are going to develop our economy in the agriculture sector. We do the same, be it for road construction, engineering, whatsoever. But the challenge that we have is that we are using a neoliberal structure of running an economy, where the state is told that it has no big role to play in the economy. We believe in state planning. If a state is going to plan for its people, it should know the priority areas. It should know how many learners should be going to our vocational VocTech to get what skills, how many learners should take the academic route. But also more importantly, we then don't want to the government of the day to overemphasize skills development also at the expense of developing the critical thinking of the citizen. So civic education then becomes a priority, which is cross-cutting, even becoming from primary school, so that even if someone is going to go to a vocational training center, they still have the critical thinking capacity to hold their own government accountable. We don't want them to end up producing citizens who are like machines, just ready to be abused and manipulated. There should also be some civic education in as much as we impart the skills. But the solution lies in state planning. Without state planning, we will continue to have serious problems. We get worried when there's overemphasis to say we want investors, but our government doesn't even have a clear template to say we need investors in which area, what are our priority areas. So we find people coming to be called investors, but they are just going to loot lithium. Lithium that we would just send some of our people to go and take, and then the state can find ways of processing it, value add and sell. But someone travels all the way from China to invest in the lithium mining. Are those the areas which need investment? So at the end of the day, we do not have a coherent state plan with regards to say how does our education system feed into national development.